Welcome back. This is Moksha and you are watching Excel Stacy. In last videos, we have covered an important and very useful topic of Excel VBA. That was the functions. How do we use a function and create our own formula? Now let's move ahead further and start using the object variables. In this video, we will be covering the object variables, how to declare an object variable and to set an object variable, and using the with block with the objects. So let's make a small program and depict all things together. Sub declare object, name could be anything, okay, but has to be some meaningful name. Div. So objects are declared same as we declare the other variables like integer, long, double, string, etc. But their type has to be some object types. For example, dim, I am declaring workbook object as workbook. And as you know, the variable naming terminology or rules that object variable name should not be same as the keyword, the Excel's keywords. So it has to be something different. Like we cannot declare workbook as a variable name because workbook something somewhere has some meaning in for the Excel. So the words or the keywords which has some meaning for the Excel or somewhere in the Excel, so we cannot use them as a object variables. Now declare a worksheet object. Now range object. And here we have declared the three objects of different types. One is for workbook, one for worksheet, and third for range. So normally we assign a value, a normal variable like this, x equal to 10, like, and y equal to 20. So by this way we declare a normal variable, assign a value to a normal variable. But object cannot be assigned a value directly. We have to set the object variables. For example, here is a keyword set, which allows you to just set the object variable. So WKB is a variable which has a reference of a workbook object. So WKB variable can only have a workbook kind of object into it. So let assign the reference of this workbook, means the workbook where we are working, the way we are coding right now. So this workbook is a property, workbook is a property of application object which holds the reference to the current workbook where we are coding. So this workbook means the reference to the object for this workbook, the workbook where we are coding right now. We have set the workbook object. Now let's set the worksheet object. Now WKS we have declared it as a worksheet kind of object variable, means this can only hold the worksheet kind reference of object. So it should have a reference to worksheet only. So we have already declared a variable here, the workbook WKB. So let's use it, WKB. Now it holds the reference to this workbook, means if we press dot, it should start showing you the properties and method of the workbooks. Means WKB.worksheets, and index number means we are referring here the sheet number 1 in this worksheet. Sheet number 1, if you rename here, you cannot find the sheet index number, but if you check here, So sheet 1 is the month 1 here. It means WKS holds the reference to the worksheet of this workbook. Okay, now we have set the worksheet object. Now move ahead further and set the range object RNG equal to. Now we are referring indirectly to the workbook, then worksheet. Now we are referring to the ranges. Means we should have the range of some worksheet in this object. Means range A1 to, let's example, let A1 to D10. Now it's a kind of step up kind of thing, step up object reference. So workbook holds the reference to this workbook, worksheet so hold the reference to this worksheet 1 of this workbook, and range holds the reference to the ranges of this of sheet 1 of this workbook. Means it's a sequence of reference of objects. So we have set the 3 objects here. So let's start working with the workbook object now. First of all, so if we want to save a workbook, if we want to add a workbook, how do we add a workbook or create a new workbook? Like it is, so if we go to file and create a new workbook here, so blank workbook, a blank workbook automatically inserted. So this is the one of the way that we manual way that we created a workbook or open a new workbook. So how do we do it? By a program. So WKB, sorry. So workbook itself is a object of application, container or application object. So workbooks dot add. Okay, this is a function which adds a new work or creates a new workbook. Let's run this program and see how does this function or method working or not. F8, 8, 8, 8, 8, F8. Okay. So F8 is pressed, a new workbook open. This is book 4 now. Now let's close it. So add is a method of workbook object or a workbook container. Which container means has the multiple reference to the workbook, which has a collection of basically this is a collection here. So workbooks are the collection of workbooks. So with the object of object is called the container itself. So add is the method of workbooks, so which adds a new workbook in the application in Microsoft applications. Okay. Now set this. Now how do we set this? We have set WKB here. So WKB1, I am declaring another variable here, WKB1 as range. Okay. So this newly added workbook can be referred in another object variable. So set WKB1. Okay. So what this statement says, like a new workbook added and its reference object reference goes to this object variable. Okay. Now we can use the WKV1 and work upon the newly opened workbook. Okay. WKB1 dot save. So I have taken the wrong reference object type here, so it has to be workbook always. So we have created a new object variable and assigned a value of the newly added object reference of newly object to this workbook variable. Now we can refer everywhere where we have to refer this workbook for reference for this workbook. For the workbook that is newly created. So save as. So now we can save also this workbook, newly added workbook, and I am saving it here in this folder slash work test by XLSM. Let's create a parenthesis. So first we have set the variable of newly added workbook, and then we are saving the same workbook somewhere in our PC. So this is adding the workbook, this statement, and this is saving the same workbook somewhere in our memory. Okay. So let's run this program step by step using F8. Okay. So it's showing that the same workbook cannot be same saved as the this kind of uh, reference. So let's save it by some Excel SX. Okay. Now run this program. Okay. So what this statement does that it's created a new workbook and saved it somewhere in your PC. So let's see the same file is created or not. Okay. So it is created work test. Okay. Okay. Now later we have to save the workbook. We have completed some work and want to save our work. So this could also be done by programmatically or by macros. So wkb1.save for this workbook will save the existing work, unsaved work, and wkb1 dot close. So what this statement is doing that wkb adding kb1, this statement adding a new workbook, this is saving the same workbook somewhere, this is saving the workbook again if the workbook the work is done unsaved, if the work is unsaved, and this statement is closing the workbook. Okay, now here one thing is to be noticed that we are referring the same object again and again for this again and again in the same lines, means somewhere this workbook one the object reference is repeated somewhere. We can use with the AND block, which reduces the amount of lines of code and repeating of the same object. So here we set the workbook one here, which means the newly added object, newly added workbook. Now with WKB1 and with, okay, means how do we use it? Dot save as. Means once dot is used here, it means that the same object's property or method is being used here. The compiler knows itself that once dot is used with in the with block with the object, it means that we are referring to the same objects and its properties. Okay. The same line of code we can paste here. Dot wkb one dot save, sorry, dot save dot class. Okay. So here the same work is done using the with block. Now close this sheet. Okay. Now run this program. F8 and it has to and with statement. F8 8. The same work is done. Yes. F saved. This workbook is open now, saved its work, and again once the workbook is saved, close. Because this is again asking, because once it is saved, then I have made the changes to the workbook. That's why it's asking to save the work again. Now cancel it. Now rerun this program. You must be confused. F8, F8, 8, 8, 8, 8. The workbook is okay. Now let's make change this workbook. Let's make the work some changes. Add some work to this workbook. Now this statement is saving this same work, closing it, and ending it. So this statement is, this line of statement is doing what? It's opening a new work, creating a new workbook, saving it, saving some work, and closing it. So these are the some properties and methods of workbook. So let's use one more thing here. See, workbooks. How do we open a new workbook? How do we open a already existing workbook? So existing workbook somewhere on our PC. So workbooks dot open. Let's open the same file again. So let's run this whole program again. F888, a new workbook added, saved, work saved, closed again. You can see here there is no such file open here because it's opened and closed back again. So it's created and closed back again, and then again by using this statement we again opening the same workbook. This Excel SX. Okay. Now open it. So again the workbook is open. So in next videos we will be covering the looping and decision making, and further we move into the ranges, worksheet and ranges objects. So thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, share and like my videos. Thank you very much. This was Moksha. Bye bye.